Two men live on the same street in Ballarat. Same brick veneer, same lemon tree at the front, same year of retirement. One of them has $333,000 in super. The other has $733,000, which is more than double. But when the fortnightly payments land, the man with less money ends up living on $11,000 a year, more than his neighbor. Not less, more. That is not a mistake. Nobody filled in the wrong form, nobody missed a deadline, and neither of them is doing anything unusual. It is exactly how the assets test is built. And by the end of this, you will know precisely where that trap sits, how wide it runs, and whether you are standing in it right now. The age pension has two tests. There is an income test, and there is a separate assets test. And Services Australia runs both of them, works out what each one says you should receive, then pays whichever figure is lower. Most people only ever think about the assets one. Therefore, that is where we are going to spend our time. It is also the test that produces the situation on that street in Ballarat, and the one that trips up people who have done everything the system asked of them. Start at the top of the ladder, where the system still behaves the way you expect it to. A single homeowner can hold up to $333,000 in assessable assets and still receive the full rate. That comes to $1,200.90 a fortnight. $31,223 a year, including supplements, indexed twice annually, and it does not run out no matter how long you live. Your house is not counted, not a single dollar of it. Whatever the suburb, whatever it would sell for tomorrow morning, but almost everything else is, and that is where the surprises start. Your car counts. So does the caravan sitting in the garage. Furniture and appliances count as well, valued at what you would actually get for them secondhand rather than what you paid new, which surprises almost everybody. Jewellery counts. So do boats, shares, term deposits, cryptocurrency, and any money you hold overseas converted into Australian dollars. So the first genuine surprise for most retirees is not the size of the threshold itself. It is discovering how many ordinary household things Centrelink quietly adds together to get you there in the first place. People walk in confident they are well under, and walk out assessed as well over. Now step down one rung. You have $450,000 in assessable assets, which is a fairly ordinary outcome for someone whose salary sacrificed steadily for 20 years. You are $117,000 above the full pension line, therefore your payment starts to shrink. Here is exactly how fast. The taper rate is $3 a fortnight for every $1,000 above the threshold. Take $117,000. Divide it by 1,000 to get 117, then multiply that by 3. $351 a fortnight, gone before the payment ever reaches you. You now receive $849.90 a fortnight, $22,097 a year. That is still a substantial payment. More importantly, you still keep the Pensioner Concession Card. Hold on to that detail, because it comes back as the real sting later on. Down another rung, $600,000 in assets now, which puts you $267,000 over the line. The reduction climbs to $801 a fortnight, and the gap between the rungs starts to widen sharply. What actually lands in the account is $399.90 a fortnight, $10,397 across the year. So you added $150,000 to your savings between those two rungs, but your annual pension fell by nearly $12,000 at the same time. Then, at $733,500, the ladder simply ends. The taper has now consumed the entire payment, right down to zero. No part pension, no concession card, no pharmaceutical discount. The system simply stops recognizing you. Now, at this point in the video, a reasonable person is already thinking something quite specific, and I want to deal with it head-on before we go any further. Because it is the single objection that stops most people from ever running these numbers themselves. You are thinking, surely it is still better to actually have the money. $400,000 sitting in your own account has to beat a government payment you do not control. That is the instinct. And almost everywhere else in your financial life, it happens to be the correct one. In this specific band, it is wrong. The reason comes down to a single number that almost nobody bothers to work out. $78 a year per $1,000 is a rate. That is 7.8%, not a fee, not a tax, but the effective annual cost of every extra $1,000 you hold above that threshold. For that extra $1,000 to be worth holding at all, It needs to earn you more than 7.8% every single year, reliably, after fees. Term deposits are nowhere near that. Balanced super funds do not deliver it consistently either. Centrelink itself only assumes your money earns 3.25% at the very top deeming rate, which means that inside the taper band, the arithmetic is not close. Every dollar sitting between those two thresholds is working against you at a rate that no safe asset available in this country can match, and it does it silently, every fortnight, without appearing on any statement. So now go back to those two men in Ballarat and finish the calculation properly, because this is where it stops being theoretical. The first man holds $333,000. Drawing the 5% legal minimum gives him $16,650 from his own money. Add the full pension on top, and his total income is $47,873 a year. The second has $733,500. His 5% drawdown comes to $36,675. There is nothing underneath it. That is the whole of his income. $47,800 against $36,600. Sit with that for a second. The man with $400,000 more in superannuation lives on $11,198 a year, less than the neighbor he waves to every morning. Every year for the rest of his retirement. There is more. He also pays full price at the chemist, full price on his car registration, and full price on his utility bills because the concession card disappeared along with the payment. That card is comfortably worth over $1,000 a year on its own, which means the real gap between those two men is wider than the $11,000 suggests. To actually catch up, he would need to keep saving well past the cutoff until his own drawdown replaced the entire pension. That takes roughly another $220,000 on top of what he already has. So the losing band is not some narrow edge case you can step around. It runs for hundreds of thousands of dollars, straight through the range most Australians are actually aiming at. Nobody sat down and designed that outcome. It falls out of a taper rate, colliding with a hard cutoff. And it has been sitting there quietly since the taper rate doubled in 2017, quietly catching people who did precisely what they were told to do for 40 years. There is one more thing worth knowing before you go, because these thresholds do not sit still. The Department of Social Services reviews them in March, July, and September. The full pension limits already changed on the 1st of July this year. The cutoff points move again on the 20th of September, which is only weeks away, which means somebody sitting just above a line today could be under it in 6 weeks without changing a thing about their finances. So if you were knocked back before, it is worth applying again rather than assuming the answer has not changed. The concession card alone is frequently worth more than the small fortnightly payment that unlocks it. So the useful question was never really how much super you have. It is where you sit relative to two specific numbers. 333,000, where the reduction begins. 733,500, where it finishes. Everything in between is a band where saving more can genuinely leave you with less to live on. Tell me in the comments which side of that band you are sitting on, and whether anybody had ever shown you those two numbers together before today.